Um, So I kind of asked Luke to maybe just give the community, whoever's interested, just a stadium update, project update. You know, as a Gridiron board member, we tend to field a fair number of questions on where things are stand. This summer, I had people ask me, did people walk off the job because there was weeds growing up to the thing, to they ran out of money, to all the way to, we've got people now saying, hey, we're playing there next year, right? And so I thought it'd be just good for Luke to kind of just give a kind of a state of the project, where it's at, how much funds have been raised, what's been used towards, and where they need to go to get it done. You know, as a Gridiron Club, we're supportive of the stadium. We want to see the stadium get done. We run fundraisers every year for the Gridiron Club, and that's primarily to support a lot of the football needs in the program, equipment and things like that. And then above and beyond that, anything we can do to help, you know, move the stadium thing forward. But I think you'll find out that of all the fundraising we do, it's just not enough. And, you know, I think everybody's just looking for ideas on how to get this to the next level. And, you know, I think just more of us just gotta get field feedback and, you know, kind of get ideas as well. This isn't a big push on people to, you know, donate or anything like that. It's more of an informational meeting. I think that's the way we're proposing this.
Although we will welcome that. So just to clear that up.
So that was the basis for the meeting. And yeah, so look, you've got some information just to share. And
Happy to do it. That's exactly what my PowerPoint is. It's just simply running through some slides to share where we're at. So welcome, thanks for coming. As we go through here, I just welcome any questions along the way. It's just easier to stop and ask that question right away. I'll put in some time at the end for any questions that you didn't get to. And with that, we'll kind of get started. So the first question you get is will we be hosting football games next fall? And I think a little bit of what everything that Jamie just said is true. You know, are we out of money? Yes, we're out of money. We've spent almost everything that we've earned to date. We've got a little bit of a contingency left over, but we really need to do some fundraising efforts to get to the next step. Will we be playing games next fall? It's possible. We would have to have bleachers and press box in place, and that's what we'll talk about next, and that really is a little bit of the fundraising push. So it could be as early as next fall. It may be 3 years out. It really depends on how the funding comes together. Well, can we play a game there right now? Absolutely. It is JV football ready. We could plan for that for next year. Our struggle this year of not playing JV games was simply moving the bleachers from down at the existing stadium up for some seating. We could have done chairs on the sidelines or other, but from the playability perspective, it being lined, it has a functional scoreboard, it has parking and restrooms and all those things built into the high school facility. Yes, we could play games there right now. We just don't have the large seating capacity yet, and we don't have the ability for press box and making communications, whether it be radio, TV, other, announcing and the football game play-by-play, as well as just the ability for scouts to get up off the ground and under the roof to be able to scout opponents. So with that, all of those are kind of a true, but just wanted to start back with the history of where we're at. When we first started this, we designed this project as part of a 3-project potentially build out. In other words, not necessarily will all 3 projects happen, but we made sure we planned in the future for a project that had the football field as project 1. Project 2 then had a build out that expanded the parking lot. And project 3 had a potential baseball field out toward the back. So come on in, bud. So all of those 3 are kind of possibilities. We're obviously focusing in on project 1. And then project 1 actually got split up into 3 further sections, 1A, 1B, 1C. 1A has just the project that we're doing right now, which is field, bleachers, press box, fencing, the ability to host football games. Project B includes a track or a potential visitor side bleachers. And Project C has some jumps and throws that are down in that lower parking lot that could be reconfigured. So for this purpose, we're just looking at Project 1A. And in 1A, we specifically are looking at, right now, a 1,000-seat elevated stadium with a press box. We have an athletic field with lights. We have ADA capacity and entry points and so forth. We have a concession stand, storage, and ticket area that would all be fenced in, and with those amenities up to snuff, with at least 1,000-foot or 1,000-seat bleachers, we would be able to host playoff games here at Mineral Point.
How many, what's the seating at the football field right now, do you know?
You know, I don't know what the current capacity is. That's a great question.
So, seating 750.
750.
Not counting the hillsides, that's just the bleachers.
So 750 without the hillside, there's really, you know, and I don't know what you'd say on the visitor side what that portable rack would hold.
That's the total, I mean, that's including both sides.
That's both sides.
Both sides, 750.
Okay, can you break that down to home side versus visitor side then?
Right on the visitor side, it's a little over 200. It depends when you measure them out, if you're using the 15-inch seat or the 18-inch seat, you know.
So roughly then 550, 500
On the home side.
on the home side. So to get, again, think to answer your question, to give you a comparison or a reference, would be probably doubling what's over there now, doubling that footprint. Does not include visitor bleachers at this time. As we talk about the cost of bleachers, there's actually a build into that hillside that's possible that would significantly reduce a lot of the cost for a full rising bleacher on a flat surface. So as we go into the hillside on that far would be that's the east, correct? There's just not the drop off behind there, so you don't need all the safety guards and so forth as you're just kind of stepping up the hill. So we can look at some of that phasing down the road. The question is, in this first effort, you know, what did we anticipate this thing would cost? As we started to look at a full football field renovated by the Rattler Corporation, which has done many fields around the state, their first preliminary cost was $1.7 million, and that was what we presented to the board, and that's just the phase 1A. That's not the phase that would include a track, it would not include the expanded parking in the parking lot, it would not include a baseball field. I think all in it was something like $2.4 million. And that really gave the board some reason to pause and really think this through, and before they gave us the okay to fundraise, they wanted us to try to do every effort we can to bring those costs down. We've worked with a person named Doug Duran. He's been our project manager, and we've been kind of doing what I would consider a design and build as we go along. We've been able to eliminate a lot of these costs, and I'll share toward the end what I anticipate is going to cost for that build out. But keep in mind that we went into this idea that this project was going to be $1.7 million. And as you look around, almost every week there's an article in the State Journal or Milwaukee Journal Sentinel or someplace up north where they're right in the same boat. They're trying to privately raise for a football field, and all those numbers are coming in $1 million plus to really redo a field from beginning to end. As we move forward, the first question Jamie asked is how much has been raised and what's been completed. All of these costs that you see here have been either in-kind donated, material donated, time donated, or flat out fundraising, donations, corporate sponsorships, alumni gifts. These dollars have been expended. So what's been raised is here on this sheet. And I'm willing to share this PowerPoint with anybody. So if you want it, just let me know. I'll send it to you and you can share the types of things that we've spent our money on. There's really no surprises here other than we've been able to significantly reduce some of the project costs. If you look at all the different pieces that we've spent to date, right around $415,000 is what we put into this field. Now that includes a note that the district secured. We have a couple people that have guaranteed that note so that the district wouldn't be able to be caught in a default situation where they would end up picking up the cost. So that's all been locked up with generous people in our community to make sure that we are able to secure that note over time. And Ted Evans, on behalf of the alumni group, is raising funds to pay that note back annually. We've made the first 2 of 3 payments already, or 5, I'm sorry, first 2 of 10 payments already through the alumni raffle. So when you ask about the raffle and its effort, it's paying down that note that we pulled out, which was $250,000 over 10 years. You know, Everett's here, so I just want to say personally thank you because that's one of our guarantors. It's not it's a public piece if you look for it, but you're here, and I just want to acknowledge your effort to thank you. And Ted and Mary Paulskill also are very supportive, and they're the other guarantor on the note. So I want to thank both of those for making that piece happen. So that was $250 of the $415,000 is upfront money through that note. The rest of it has been, like we said, just point out the scoreboard, $23,100 was fully supported and funded by Farmer Savings. And they will have and do have advertising rights on that scoreboard. So that would be a piece to that is not all truly dollars. Some have just gifted specifically the scoreboard or other. Any questions on anything on this list?
What's in, I mean, what is in site work? Like, that's a big number, but what's all involved in that?
The site work is actually the field itself. So that would be everything from
Irrigation or not irrigation?
that would be your retaining wall, your flat work,
Okay.
drilling the holes into the
Goalposts?
the goalposts and so forth.
In the limestone?
Putting in the sewer and the water, and that took some blasting in there to get that piece opened up so we could run potentially water out of concessions at some point. Yeah, anything that would be, I would say, contained within the site itself, top to bottom, left to right, other than the irrigation, that piece is separate, but prepping that whole piece. And I certainly can give you a line item of each one of those things down below, so it hopefully gives you an idea. So what funds are needed to complete Phase 1A? The biggest item is the bleachers. The bleachers and the press box is going to cost $319,000 to finish that project up completely. That already includes, or that's after spending already $30,000 that we put into state design fees, getting the permits, looking at stormwater runoff, all of these kinds of things. And we already have what I would call the concrete pillars or bases or foundations bored into the location. So it's just a matter of truly bringing in the metal on site, erecting it, and putting up the bleachers. That's the next piece. We have been working with Chris Fencing. We've got about $17,000 left in fencing to put in this first phase. That includes about $8,500 for decorative fence that would be in front of the bleachers, is kind of in front of the walkway on top of the raised wall. There's some potential savings there. You know, it doesn't have to be, we have that vertical black railing fencing, vertical, I guess would be vertical black fencing. And we could certainly put industrial fencing there and save some dollars, but to me that is your front facade. That is, you know, we've done a nice job, I think, with the wall, and it's not all about aesthetics, but you don't want just a chain linked fence all the way around either. I think you want to balance some aesthetics with functionality. So there is some potential cost savings there. The lights, the bases are in. The balance of the lights is just the related materials and installation of the poles that slide over the concrete sleeves that you see out there. And that's plus or minus about $150,000. It's the cost today. If we wait a year or two, we've seen anywhere from 3 to 5% inflation rates on materials. So somewhere in the area of about $487,000 if we add those all up. When I say a plus or minus a 10% contingency, just because everything will cost more than it does this year, whether it be labor, materials, or other. The only thing that's not in that number is what I would say is the concession building and any amenities inside of that. And then there's a fence on the south end, which is more toward that gravel parking lot. We've got a perimeter fence to contain the field, but we may want to do some additional fencing and gates to allow people to actually entrance from the south and go right to a visitor site in the future. But that wasn't a right-of-way need, so we were just going to close it off with a perimeter fence, and we can come back and add additional fencing. So, you know, we're just shy of halfway, which I think is inspiring. Considering that 2 or 3 years ago, we were just kind of still thinking about it and dropping the hammer and saying go. And at the same time, we're only halfway, and we've got a long way to go yet. So,
Hey, Luke, on
Yeah.
the bleachers, well, I should get into it anyway. So the intent is, the 1,000 is the whole, just the middle point, the home field site?
Yes.
Or is that, okay, so it's not
yep, would
the
be
whole, like Cuba City or?
correct. You've got 1,080 seats, I believe, is what the capacity is. And it has a full, if you look down here, it goes just beyond probably the 25-yard line. So from the 30 to the 30 and just a little bit beyond, probably 25 to 25 is a long stretch of field. The students usually pack one end of it on either side, down by the 30, by the goal line, and then you've got traditionally the adults and the alumni in the middle. Band usually takes a section off of the bleacher section here, somewhere toward the end. Sorry about that. It is obviously, we need handicap accessibility and so forth, so that's all been thought through. The design of this has a vestibule in the middle where you can come up and go out in the middle. You don't have to walk off either of the far two ends. And up on top, sorry gang, my mouse took us off there, an 8 by 44 foot press box. And that, I'll talk a little bit about what's included in that.
What's the current size of the press box now?
Help me out, Roger, any idea?
I would say it's about 10 by 30, 9 by 40, something like that.
It's about 300 square feet.
This one's what? 10 by?
8 by
340
by
something,
44.
pretty similar overall square footage.
Yeah.
I think the magic number for some reason is 475 or 500 square feet, and at that point, you need to go to a handicap accessible facility. So if the square footage is less than, let's just say it's 500 square feet, you don't need an elevator to access it. If it's over 500 square feet, add another $150,000 to the project to get an elevator in. So we've tried to max out the floor space that we had up there for not only what we need here and now, but any potential needs in the future. Again, we're trying to expand and think about what if we had radio ×2, or what if we had scouts and or our own opponents that we want to scout, plus we want to let other people from other schools scouting the opponent ahead in outside of the range. So we're trying to build enough space that everybody that needs to be in there has a space, but recognizing that we're not going to be able to accommodate everybody because of the square foot limitations. Next slide is just kind of a lateral view of the press box. It has just your standard elevated bleachers on the front, and then it has, and I guess the parts that have already been done is all of these bases have been already augured and cement filled so that the posts are just going to rest on here. This will be open in the back where you can drive in and, I'm not sorry, drive in, but you can store stuff underneath the bleachers, so it'll be an enclosed storage facility that will allow for everything from your end zone flags and chain gang crew stuff, materials, raw materials that Roger would use, your liner, all of that kind of stuff would be stored underneath the bleachers. Up on top then a press box, and I can give you a little more details here. 11 rows up to the top. They think of the butt space is about 18 inches per, so that's not legitimate. I know not everybody has an 18-inch butt, but that's how they count the seats out. So the question is, what's needed specifically to host a playoff game for next year? We can kind of talk about this a little bit, but in my mind, it's two things. You need bleachers for people to sit, and you have to have 1,000 seats or more in order to be playoff eligible. So that's another reason why we drew the capacity up just a little bit over 1,000, but not too much. And then you need a press box. You have to have a place where people can call the game and be able to report out on the game, and scouts can actually just your own team headsets down to the sidelines to be able to support the players and the team. The bleachers itself are 245,000 left. That's the home side bleachers. Again, it doesn't include the visitor. That would have a front skirt on it. That doesn't have to happen at this time. It could be delayed, but what that does is it opens up the bottom of the bleachers so kids could run out on the field underneath the bleachers without the front skirt, and it also just dresses it up, but that's something that could or could wait. Accent panels are the stuff on the side panels. If you don't do it now, and they strongly encourage that we would, because the railing system on the side is tied into those accent panels. So if you don't put the accent panels on now and you leave the sides open, you'd have to at some point take the railings off and put them back on, which is an additional expense. So not cost efficient, but it would save some money in the short term if the goal was just to play in it. The storage enclosure, then it wouldn't be enclosed if you didn't do the accent panels. The risk we run there is the state permit for this bleacher system is with an enclosed storage system. If we don't enclose it within 2 years, then we have to reapply for the permit, which is not problematic, but you go through the laborious system with the state, and there's an extra fee for that. So we're trying to keep it all under one project. And then a speaker roof rack. It's engineered to take our big speakers that are currently on the other building and bring them over. We might be able to save some dollars by figuring out a way to do that in-house and internally, but that's what would be included in the bleachers number. The press box, an 8-foot by 44-foot press box. It seems like a big number for carrying a building that's 8 by 44, but this comes all pre-finished galvanized metal on the outside, roof, walls, studded, so forth. Insulation in the walls, the ceiling paneling, carpeting, countertops, 8 windows, 2 doors, all the lighting completed, all the electrical junction boxes put in, all the conduit pulled. When you start to add in all those others, yes, we could probably put up a shelf for less, but then you have no place to sit, nothing to write on, and nothing to turn the lights on, and it's not cold or it's not warm in there because it's not insulated, all those kinds of things. So those prices are what's considered that integrated bleacher system, all put together by JDI, who does a lot of bleacher systems throughout the state of Wisconsin. They're probably the primary installer of bleacher systems across the state. This number is a solid number, provided that there's a purchase order by December 31st. After that, a December 31st purchase order would suggest a spring install, probably in the month of April. And with a spring install in the month of April, they have worked for people when most schools are just starting to try to figure out their project. and that's a benefit to them. And so they would hold their pricing in order to get their laborers some work early in the spring before things really start taking off. Other than that, if it goes into a fall installation, now we're competing with a lot of other projects that are also trying to get installed before the football season, and they will recognize an increase in material cost. They suggest 3 to 5% has been standard for material price increases. 3 to 5% on this project is roughly $9,000 to $18,000 more. That's the cost to wait. And at the same time, we may not have an option. We may just have to wait. But I also think about what it takes to raise $9,000 or $18,000, and that's a lot of money to have to raise on top of the project itself. So I do feel some sense of urgency to try to get a spring project installed up and running to save us more effort in fundraising. But again, if the dollars don't come together, it's just an option that we may not be able to consider. What funds are currently available? After the stadium loan, and for this year was paid, and again, thank you for Ted on the alumni raffle, and all the expenses that we've paid year to date, and the project's kind of wrapped up for this fiscal year 2015, we have approximately $50,000 on hand to start a project for next spring. That's what we have left over. That comes from $15,000 that's left in the note of $250,000 that we've spent down, all of it but $15,000. We have $25,000 in fundraising in hand. $21,000 of that is what I would call just the stadium seat bleacher project, the scrap metal project. I'm trying to think of the other things that have just come in. Donors have been giving lately into their class names. All of these pieces have just started to build that kitty back up again, and we have roughly $21,000 in there. There's another $4,000 that I have available as a gift that I can put toward this project or any other projects, and I see this as our biggest need right now. That doesn't include anything that the Gridiron or the stadium, what I said is the Gridiron Stadium fundraising dollars. We have run a stadium effort through the form of a golf outing in the past. The Gridiron has run a golf outing in the past. This year we combined the dollars. Those dollars are not considered as part of the $50,000 we have to start the project. So I'm kind of keeping the Gridiron separate. The Gridiron's money is the Gridiron's. Whatever they decide to give to this project is their decision. We have 50 in hand without anything from the Gridiron. Just some other miscellaneous things. We have $40,000 in reserves. 3 years ago, we put in an energy efficiency project. That project came in under bid. So the money that we had taken out in the form of a note left a surplus of $40,000, $39,000 and change. That can only be used for capital type projects. The district hasn't earmarked that money for anything specifically. So it's money that's out there. We can't use it for books or salaries. We have to use it for something maintenance-wise. We did just decide to replace some boilers, so that's where some of that money I believe will come out of. That's roughly how much, Roger?
22,000.
22. So take that 40 minus 22, so roughly 18 left in that. The district has this year $180,000 surplus. That was unanticipated based on the biannual budget and some enrollment shifts that happened late in the post-July, and that is a one-time surplus. We will be determining what to do with those dollars in the months of December and January and how we want to use it. We've got lots of options in front of us, but knowing that right now we do have that money that has not been budgeted for. Next year, we look to project a $20,000 shortfall, and the year after that a significant shortfall. It's hard to say because we'll be in another biannual budget of exactly what that will be, but that money then can't be put into what I would consider long-term staffing needs because it's only a one-time lump sum. It's kind of a windfall, and we can't use it for reoccurring fees. So the question is how to use that. Some board members on our board have suggested a referendum as the next step. We've fundraised half of it. Perhaps we would want to pick up the other half. Let them decide if that's a yes or a no. Other members feel like no, we have said that this will be an entirely privately funded effort, and therefore we are not going to ask the community to pick that up. I have some personal opinions about it if you want to know about it, but I'll leave that for another time. February 16th, if you did do a referendum, a February 16th primary referendum question would mean that the board would have to approve that at this meeting coming up December 14th. If it were an April 5th referendum question, that would have to be approved by the board by January in order to meet state rules and regulations around informing the public about the referendum question. So that's the funding options that I believe are currently available to us. Let me pause. Any questions on anything up to date? And obviously, Matt, as a board member, if I misspoke or if I'm not speaking to the board's position as a member, let me know. So that kind of walks us through the questions that I think Jamie asked. What questions do you have on anything at all? If I don't know, I'll get the answer and send it back to the group. Or what thoughts or ideas do you have to help us continue to make progress?
It just seems like fundraising is what needs to be done, and you're not gonna have it by spring.
No.
I mean, there's no way.
How many seats have been sold yet for the?
Have we been keeping the website up to date? So I can walk out here and do a little quick snoop. At mpstadium.com, we have an area where people can donate and so forth, our fundraising events. Under the donate, we have the donors. And under that link, it gives us our platinum, gold, silver, bronze, royal, and this is the engraved seat program that we have to date. So without counting, I'm gonna guess, I'm gonna estimate about 40 donors to date. And if anybody wants to purchase a seat, there's more information up here under our fundraising events. They can get more information about purchasing the seat. So certainly, as we go forward, if people aren't aware of the mpstadium.com website, direct them there. It's a wealth of information that can give you progress and updates as well as make a donation.
I do think there's, I don't know, just the donors and, you know, the recognition, I know it's on the website out here, but I mean, people give $5,000 or $10,000, I mean, it seems like there's a better way to recognize it versus on 3 clicks away on a website. So, I mean, I, you know, kind of kicked around, you know, maybe some signage around the stadium, maybe it's right by the stadium, maybe it's on the stadium, you know, back of the
Yeah.
bleachers. I don't know. I just think it's, first of all, I don't know that people realize what giving levels there are, and what do they get for it? Do they get anything for it? Is it just an in-kind donation and, you know, get your name on the website or what? I just think there might be some opportunities to maybe do a better job on the recognition side of this thing.
I agree, and there has always been a plan for a recognition board inside the stadium. There will be a little, what I would call a promenade area, or just a little gathering space inside the ticket entrance. That was the place that we would have either, and this hasn't been decided, but signage that would have the different sponsors and levels. It could be bricks, it could be lots of different things, stars, but there would be a physical recognition on site. We just haven't got the place where we have a fence to hang the signage on yet. So there's just nothing out there right now but the doghouse over the top of the pump system. So that would be the long-term plan, is to have an area that would recognize signage on a more formal basis. This is kind of a place to capture it in the short term so that at least those that have donated can be recognized and or sponsor somebody else. You know, if Jeff and Carrie Paulskill gave, I should probably give too, kind of a thing. Maybe that does or doesn't incite somebody. But
Do you think we could do a sign on the entrances of the parking lot to the school, kind of an ongoing or running sign of donors and where they fall in the gold, silver, bronze, Royal Club or whatever?
I think that's possible.
It's something people can see, one, recognition, also see that hopefully it's filling up, it's making progress, making moves. Another thing that was brought up to me by some businesses that I shot out some ideas to was, are we gonna do signage on the fence? Like, you know,
Sponsorship signs.
sponsorship signs, you know, Lands End wants to do a sign, you know, do they wanna do a, you know, for a 3x2 or a 2x2, do they, this is what it costs, this is what you would get on that, you know, if they donate, could they get their business logo, or what opportunities are there for that?
We put the pricing in place for that, we just haven't really rolled anything out. You know, it's,
Right. And I think that's something we need to set up to say, okay, if you're, you know, the hotel, you know, Comfort Inn, if they want to put a sign up, this is your emblem on this size sign is this many dollars. And that's something that's been asked. you know, you ask to donate, well, what are they getting for their donation? There were some businesses that want, you know, recognition, obviously. And
It's like advertising.
advertising, exactly. The other one had been like for, you know, in memory of or memorials or things like that is, you know, could we have, I think that should be something we have a signage for, you know, in memory of someone. This is the sign you get for this number of dollars. I think if you give people a dollar figure, and with that relates to this recognition, they know what you're asking for. You know, is that donation a seed engraving? We know what that is. For $250, we get 18 characters on a seed engraving. So we know what that is. What about if someone wanted to give $2,500 or $5,000 or, you know, I think having levels there, I guess I'm asking is for ideas and availability. You know, we want this to be aesthetically, you know, want to turn it into a baseball field where we're stub hubbing all the way around or anything, but,
Well, speaking of that, we have in the works a signage that is much like a thermometer of what needs to be raised and how far we are. Instead of using the thermometer bulb idea, it would be the football field, and you're trying to make a touchdown, which would be all the way across the field, filling in all the 5 to 10 yard increments going up. That hasn't been implemented yet, but it's something that could be implemented. The caution you want to just be aware of is that when you put money into signage, which sometimes you put money into advertising and signage to make more money, but if you're also taking money and putting it into signage, you're not putting it towards bleachers or the next piece of that project. So I would suggest that if we're going to do a donor recognition, that it be the sign that we're ultimately going to put that can be reattached to the final permanent location. But we don't know that until everybody gives. So you don't want to start putting names on there because it's much more costly to add to it as people continue to contribute. You don't want to take it down and try to add a name to it and then put it back up again. So you know, I'm very open to whatever you think will help propel this project forward. And I think a signage with donor recognition is something we certainly could consider. I think that's got a lot of merit, and there will be a permanent display for sure. That's always been guaranteed. The fencing signage, like Kristen had mentioned, we've already scoped out what would we sell a 3 by 5 foot square on a fence for, and what's that worth, and could you do a 1 year deal versus a 3 year deal? A great time to roll that program out is really when you're trying to put the fencing in. That's the time we need $17,000 to put fencing in, and go out and hit your donors at that point. You know, for $3,500, you can have a 3 year section on this fence that'll help us pay for that part of the project. But that doesn't get us any closer to bleachers. That's the struggle, is that piece is down the road, and once you've played that card with a vendor to say, we want sponsorship for the fence, they're expecting sponsorship for a fence that's not coming until after a bleacher, which is not in the near future. So help me think that through and kind of create solutions to that. What will our vendors say yes to, or how can we package that? We certainly would even be up to and considering naming rights for the stadium. I mean, we haven't ruled that out as an opportunity as well. If we wanted to name it in memory of or in recognition of a sizable donation, that's a possibility as well. The idea I had about bleachers is soliciting vendors to take a section of bleachers, and if I go back to our stadium here and just go back to, we have different sections here that is guided by a 4 foot, I would assume 4 foot industrial fence on the back of it. That is something where you could put a signage that would say, I'm just going to use a vendor, the quick trip section and or the subway section. It could be the bank of section. Those are certainly areas where it could help us buy a section of bleachers, and maybe that's a way to get some of that signage idea on the fencing going, but have it be more representative of the bleacher creature student section area or something like that. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. Thoughts about anything that I talked about that resonated with anybody, that sounded better or not so good?
One thing I was thinking of when you were talking about signs, it might not be a bad idea to have a thing, okay, this is our goal to raise and how close we get to it.
that's a touchdown.
You know, like
Like a thermometer.
you said you had 487,000 left to complete the project.
Yeah.
You know, you start there and how close. It's out there a little bit, maybe more so than a reminder of what's left on the
Right.
project.
to me, I see coming into the school, as obviously where the football field is, we're driving right by that, would be a good place for that.
We've actually talked about it a lot. I'll totally take responsibility. We just haven't gotten to it yet, so.
Yeah. And I think, I agree, because I think, you know, we got 20 people in this meeting getting an update to understand how much is left, but unless somebody watches this video, nobody really knows kind of where this thing's at, so I think anything you can do to make sure people realize, you know, how far there is to go.
Well, that's why, you know, sitting here from the outside, you know, you had 415 that's already been spent, you know, 250 of it from commitments. You know, so we've raised you raised about 165,000, you still have 487 to go. It's a long ways to go yet, for the project specs. It's gonna take some time, is my opinion.
Another thing, I think the other component that's missing is people. I mean, we're kind of limited into the people we have to do, you know, to do the fundraising and to put the effort. It's really, that's, you know, it's just.
That's, you
It's
know.
a small group, I mean, it's.
I mean, and it's a good
Real small
point
group.
too, you know, it costs more money to, you know, get a marketing firm that can spend the time and effort to do those types of things, but sometimes those things are worth it also.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that whether it is or isn't, I'm just saying there's a long way to go yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing, I think if we had a sell sheet or something we put together,
A brochure.
a brochure to say, you know, for this donation, we can do this recognition. And that's, you know, right now, you ask someone for money, what are you asking for? You know, hey, you want to donate to the stadium? Well, sure. I mean, what's that check have you written for? Well, if you ask them for specifically $5,000, this is what recognition you'll get for that. For $1,000, it's this, or, you know.
We do have that on some level here. This is under the donate page, which is also in a brochure that we printed up that we have available. They're in our office. They've been around a little bit and distributed, but we put some pricing on naming rights. If somebody wanted to donate to the field, the press box, the concession stand, you know, we would certainly, you know, recognize their name as the blank concession stand. And sponsorship levels, we have stated on the brochure and in the website that for a tax deductible gift, your name and donation level will be recognized on a sponsorship plaque located inside the stadium. Now, you know, we maybe need something conceptual to say, well, what does that plaque look like? Is it a little 4x8 or is it like this big board? And I want to be on the board when it's all said and done. But we did try to come up with what we thought were reasonable steps so that anybody that had a contribution, big or small, could be recognized. And if there was somebody that did, I would say, a $10,000 or up type of a contribution, I would look to do something special, you know, outside of just recognizing them as a platinum. I think that's a pretty significant gift. We have not done to date what I would consider a general ask of our businesses. We haven't gone out and really sat down with business owners and or leaders in the community and really asked them one-on-one if they would be willing to contribute or pledge to this. And there's certainly people that would benefit, much like from our beautiful gymnasium, to have a beautiful stadium, coming into town, gassing up, potentially staying overnight, eating at our restaurants. There's a lot of potential upside to the chamber side of this with local businesses that haven't been tapped or asked yet. There may be some potential large donors that we haven't solicited personally yet that we could do. So I think there is still a potential for gifts to come in. I don't think we've really saturated it as well as we could. I don't think we've tapped our alumni base as well as maybe we could. So I think there's still some opportunity. I don't think we've run out of opportunity. And we still continue to fundraise. And every year we get more successful and we raise actually more dollars than the year before because we've learned a few things about what's working and what's not. The golf outing in itself, I think, raised $7,100 net. Was a very successful joint effort. And so, you know, there's other opportunities like that that I think can continue to materialize. And every year we put some more into the coffers. We're getting one step closer to completion.
It'd take a lot of golf outings to get 400,000. I mean, you're really gonna need, you're really gonna need some individuals that are willing to do, 5,000.
You come down to the 1,000 seats at $250 a seat, and we have people buying seats, but not to the extent that we need to have seats bought. We're a long ways from 1,000 people, I guess is what it is.
Yes.
So where do we turn the corner? How can we turn the corner to get people behind it?
I think what you're saying is true, but I also would say it's the marketing side of this too.
Yeah,
We're gonna get it out there.
A lot of people aren't getting asked.
Right.
In fact, I've had people, just because I'm a gridiron member, can say, hey, how do I buy a seat? I don't even know how I buy a seat.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, well.
Alumni, like you
Yeah.
were saying.
So I think the marketing side of this is just reaching out to, and, maybe it's a mailing, I don't know what it is, but, letting people know what the donating levels are, what you get for it. Visuals, the visuals of signage, visuals of recognition, and whatever, I think is all good. But it takes money to do that too.
Is there any database that has, I know that the secretaries have the names of graduates for each of the years. Is there any way to expand that to include addresses? And I think a mass mailing, the groups that have done the fundraising, you've pretty well saturated that effort, and I think you need to pyramid out. We've had tremendous success with students that have left here in all sorts of occupation and fields that if you reach out,
Yeah.
I do think that there would be some interest. But it's a matter of marketing. I don't think there's enough people that know where the website is. How do you get that information out?
I think that's a point to what she brought up, there's not enough people. And also, if you look at the town of Middle Point, there's probably not enough businesses that, support. And I'm being one of those, we're hit up all the time from all different organizations, and try to help out whenever we can, and I certainly try to donate to a lot of them when they come in, but there's only so many businesses in this town that can do so much. And I think you gotta try to look a little bit outside the box and reach out, because there's only so much fundraising this community can handle, because it's not just the gridiron, it's the basketball, it's the volleyball, it's the FFA. I mean, the number of fundraising is difficult when the size community, when these guys are, everybody, not necessarily business, but certain individuals, certain businesses all the time. But like Ted said, there's a lot of people, maybe that moved away that maybe aren't aware of this, that now would be a great time to be hitting them up this time of year. Okay, it's year end, this is a tax deductible deduction. And from the county side, people that maybe would, just like maybe the church or some other organization, give some at the end of the year for a donation.
And that's some of the businesses I've talked to have been outside Mineral Point. And for them, because they're not part of the community and they're not part of the Gridiron Club, they want the recognition. Like, okay, they like, a lot of businesses from Dodgeville and the surrounding areas, Platteville and Barnville and so on, whatever. They're like, well, we get hit up constantly from the local, but we would like to spread the word to say, hey, we appreciate the business we get from Mineral Point. But for them, if they don't have their emblem on a sign or somewhere, it's kind of a lost cause, they become part of the mix. So
Kind of a one and done.
it's a one and done, and they're asking, I guess the question that bounced back to me was, well, what do I get for, if I give you $5,000, can I put my emblem somewhere? Because if I don't, that business name on a sign amongst a bunch of other ones doesn't get the recognition, and they don't get, people aren't staying at their hotel or gassing up in their gas station. So it's because they're doing work for people in the community that they want to support the community, but they need that recognition to make that a valid donation, for an advertising aspect. And that's, I guess, something that I seen brought up a little bit, just kind of getting the word out there. And to me, it seems like a value, because you're right, they said the same thing. Well, our community asks us all the time, but I would like to donate over here to show you that I don't just support the Barnville and the Dodgeville people. We also support other, because they get, now businesses are, coming from farther away.
Thinking outside the box a little bit as far as just fundraising, are we set in what we can charge for a person to come to a game? Are we set in, can we charge people for parking? Can there be some ongoing fees or assessments that we look at, or no? I don't know how it works.
The board can determine, annually we make recommendations for fees. And the board sets those fees annually.
The WAA has nothing to do with how much we charge.
Not to apply.
Not to play, then we determine how much we charge.
Regular season, we have the flexibility. And to that extent, it could be $1 surcharge for a stadium upgrade. Absolutely, that's a possibility. It could be this parking lot is reserved for paying customers only. That could be, but we certainly wanted to communicate that with the board and the public in general and make sure it's clear about the intent of those dollars to be directed specifically toward the stadium effort. And so, yeah, that's something we could approach.
Well, just something you put a long-term plan you could put together and stuff it's gonna be paid over time if you have trouble with the initial fund.
That was something I was thinking about when you were talking about the parking. When you said that this is getting split into 1A, B, and C, is it going in that order, that they're doing that and then the parking? Or is it, if we get done with 1A, then we can go to 2 to get that parking because we're gonna need it for the stadium complex, or?
Yeah, I think it was more just to break out the project itself. It really wasn't in a chronological order. And in fact, we might find that the additional 80 parking spots, we're fine. We don't need 80 unless it's that 1 or 2 games out of the year that just overflows us. But those are all steps that could be taken. And again, it's more with the idea of building for the future. So if we ever wanted to add stalls, we've thought about that. Or if we ever wanted to put in a track, we didn't put the light posts in too narrow to the field where we couldn't then add it. So all of that is I think, up in the air. It could be phased at any level or in any order.
One of the things we started to do was to ask people for, as their class reunions are taking place, if you have an email list, if you have addresses that you could share with us. And we got a couple right away, and then that kind of faded away too. So I kind of throw that out there as a challenge too to anybody who's here. If you have access to your class reunion list and you have email addresses or addresses, we can certainly start to, whether you come to Luke, Kristen, myself, Jamie, whoever, but we can start to put together a database of all the alumni, just based on class lists when people have class reunions, and start to communicate that with them. So.
Zeta Base would be very helpful for anything for the students at any time, I'm sure. So
I think you also, giving the ability to people to be able to just, maybe I don't want to pay $5,000 up front, but maybe I can do it over 5 years. And a pledge type thing where you give people the option to, support it, but maybe not all up front. And I don't know if that changes, not to talk about it on the phone, but changes the ability for, if you do get pledges like that puts you in maybe a different position that the school could look at another.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to borrow more money, but unless you have the money.
coming in, if you have a feel that the money will be there,
Right.
eventually.
Would the school board, you think, look at guaranteeing a loan if you gave a proposal how it's going to be paid back through $1 tax on the game? Say it's a 10 years, over the next 10 years, we're going to have a stadium fee to help pay for this. I know parking that might be maybe a little too far to reach, but
We've kind of gone through the Gridiron Club taking on an additional, we call it like a closing loan. So if we got close to the bleacher fund, I think it was $100,000, wasn't it, guys?
Yeah, but it's not 400.
No, but I mean, if we got to a reasonable amount,
Right.
that our booster club would take a closing note on
Right.
potentially.
well, that's what I'm talking about, looking at the overall plan, at putting the pledge in, okay, school board, we have $200,000 in community that will pledge over the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is. We think we can put it'd be very fair to put $1 on each game that goes towards paying for the stadium fund. I think it might be a little more viable than trying to come up with so much money quick, do it over a long term, but maybe that's something that
Is there a factor in a pledge that you would, if someone pledged, 100 people pledged $1,000 a year, for example?
Right.
There's certainly a factor there that certain won't fulfill, and you hope that they do, but.
Well, yeah, there's probably a certain rate you could think over that, okay, 80% of
80% are gonna
But still, there's more than
I think it would be
comfortable.
fairly high, though.
I would think it would be
guess
fairly
would be-
high.
Yeah, but then feel pretty comfortable saying, okay, we got 200,000 pledge, so we're not
Right.
going to start with that, there could be a 20% fall off possibly. And I think a lot of people in the community would really just give $1,000 a year than go through 5 fundraisers.
Right.
You know?
Well, I agree.
You know,
Good fundraising.
Yeah, we fundraise up. I'd almost, rather than buy all this, I'd rather just give some bucks.
Exactly.
You know?
And Luke, didn't you do something in the initial on that? There was a, you could do a drawn out pledge, wasn't that part of that initial proposal?
We've got it here, the platinum
Oh,
donation. We didn't want to, and we can certainly revisit this, but we didn't want to take a $750 donation in 3 years, just start tracking $250 a year from this person or that person. But we did say right from the get-go that if you wanted to do a larger payment in the platinum, which is $5,000 or up over a multiple year period, that we've always considered that an opportunity. That is very much the model of Farmer Savings when they donated toward the scoreboard. That was a 3-year donation process. And while they continue to give every year, we've been having the benefit of the scoreboard's up and it's functional. We could have used it this year, probably will use it next year. So that very much is viable. And I think the district's already displayed some interest in partnering in this project. They certainly are the owner retainer of a great facility. So to the extent that they could, through fund balance or in some of these excess funds, guarantee a pledge over time, I think that they are in a position to be able to do that if they so chose. And that would give you the money up front to continue to build the stadium and then the ability for donors to pay back over time. So I would certainly see that's possible.
The library went through that when they did their remodeling, and I think, like
The
the
hospital.
Lions Club, did whatever it was over 4 years, I think it was. I think for the kind of funds that you're talking about, I think getting pledges is critical, would be critical to trying to finish this project. Like you said, I think, people giving something, and I think most people would, meet their pledge, whatever it was, unless they had some financial hardship. But
Right.
that gives you, once you get the pledges, at least that gives you an idea of where you stand.
What they also did is they sent reminder letters.
Yeah.
By the way,
Usually in.
Yeah, I mean, somebody has to watch that and keep track of the pledges, and who's paid, who hasn't, and send out notices and everything else too. But I think that would be a good way to approach it, to try to get larger donors also.
I mean, I throw out the 400,000 number, but you're really talking, if you've got 50 available, and it's roughly 300 or
So looking
320.
at 270
So you're really talking 250 to 270, 270.
to be able to play in it next
Yeah, I know.
fall.
Throw out 400,000, probably a bad thing to do, because that's not really the number, I think.
Well, and again, if the goal is to play in there as soon as possible, and if, I don't want to speak for the Gridiron, but if they had a $100,000 closer note that they're willing to pull in order to get this project to go sooner rather than later, now you're talking about 170. And, is that right, 170? I mean, that doesn't make it any easier to stretch out, but we start bringing it down into little bits and pieces, and could we get 50 from one section and another 25 from another section? I don't know. But, I think part of the strategy is to say, where do we believe we can get certain pieces through corporate sponsorship and advertising and other, how much can we lock down, what's our goal, and can we put a bunch of smaller goals together? We could really put a press out on the stadium bleacher seat, for example, and really tap everybody, because we haven't asked everybody yet. And can we set a goal to raise 25 from that? That might be where there's a doable plan somewhere to kind of piecemeal, because I don't think any one of us can do it all. But if all of us take a certain component of this and piece it together, we might be able to find a way to do this sooner rather than later.
And personally, I think if you get some of the larger donations first, to get, like you said, we won't, technically raise 165,000. But if that number was 365,000, I think your smaller donators feel like their money will matter, to finish this thing off. Once, I think you gotta gather in some of the larger donations up front, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I better get going if I want my name on that seat, or, I wanna help in this too, and help in their way they can. And I think getting that number larger faster is the key. I think the pledges are an awesome idea. I think it's very viable too. There again, it's about the ask.
Well, getting something out there for saying that, hey, if you can do a pledge here.
And then if they do a pledge, this is what you'll get, or with a sign it
Right.
when we're done.
Yeah.
If you get this size, if you're 2,500, you're getting this at 5,000. be a $10,000 club. I don't know how many years you wanna go over, I mean, that's what we decided to do, a 5-year.
It would be a nice mailing to the alumni also.
I mean, it's a big base of people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They
Yeah.
don't have a clue that the stadium's being turned built. I mean, you really start to hit that group, and I think you'd be surprised at the.
It's a matter of how fast we can get information. Last year we did a postseason flyer to wrap up the football season. Haven't talked to Kristen yet, but we'll do it again this year, in terms of the past season. And then looking at projects like this and a way to advertise maybe the stadium project in general to people. So it's just a matter of having physical addresses or email contacts, or we talk about Twitter and Facebook and all this kind of stuff and throwing it out there, but then you don't know who's getting it necessarily, depending on how it's being shared or whatever, how it's being put out there, so.
It wouldn't be a bad idea, maybe to just have something in the hall too, for like when people are here for games, for whatever games, to, you know, here's a pledge sheet, you know, how it works, and what you get, just to get more information out there.
Does it have to be visible?
Right. Just to have it visible for people that can see, okay, here's what we got left, what we got to do, they're doing pledges over, whatever it is, 4 years, 5 years. I don't probably go much more than that, I don't think, guys. You're not gonna take it over to life now for 10 years.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe over 4 years, I think that's what the library did. I'm not positive, but, you gotta have something in place to track all those pledges. And when reminders are sent out or something too.
One of the questions I was asked, I promised I would ask tonight, if there's enough money raised for bleachers and press box, does that mean we are automatically switching and starting to play day games until the lights are paid for?
It doesn't necessarily need to be, like, that's really a local team decision. I mean, if it means a playoff game on a Saturday afternoon versus traveling on a Friday night, I would say absolutely.
Okay, I think it depends on the scenario and what people think. Again, they haven't decided the potential to play it would be there, but. Yeah, I don't
The
know.
Darlington model was play earlier on Friday nights during the day, where there's still a little light left if it's early enough in the season, so could still be a home game Friday night, just not under the lights versus later in the evening. But again, that, I've never had a conversation, been involved with that, and I would leave that up to the football team and the principal and the athletic director to make that decision of when they want to play the games and where.
Yeah, we've had a realistic discussion about it, really. You could do it, but that's about as far as we've ever gotten.
Is there concern two or not two?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a potential donor that asked me that was, I don't want to donate towards something and then have to get stuck watching afternoon games like Darlington had.
Gotcha.
Friday Night Lights kind of a community, and that was one of their concerns, is that we get to a certain point and not finish it all the way and stuff. So, just,
Yeah.
I promised I'd ask the question. So.
Yeah, that's sort of a we'll cross the bridge when we get there kind of a question. Yes.
So just to back up again, so it was like 230,000, finish the bleachers.
Oh, bleachers without press box?
Bleachers with press box,
Bleachers with press box.
319, we put 30 in already. And then, you know, the fencing, the lights would follow. You can do temporary fencing and still be playoff eligible. So that could be just as simple as lath and ribbon, it just has to be a way to funnel people, so that's not as critical, but at some point we would want to put any fencing. So the 320 is really the number I think we're shooting for.
Any way to reduce any of those expenses?
I did talk to the company about that, and the answer is yes, but it may cost you more later. So basically, it's delaying parts of the project. And
Or just one that jumps out at me is the press box for 73. And basically, that's about $210 a square foot.
Could we build that local? Was there a reason why we wouldn't just have local guys looking, doing that?
you could certainly do that, but this is integrated into, and I'm not saying, I'm not trying to be defensive, I'm just saying it's an integrated system built into the bleachers. It's, something that I'm not sure that the bleacher company is gonna take obviously any liability for anything that would happen up off the ground at 12 feet with a structure. So I think, we're certainly open to looking at it and seeing what we could do something all in with that bleacher system and making it compatible and fully furnishing it, so.
Is is there one, I don't even know how this works, is it just one company or two companies do bleachers, and you put this out for bid? And
Essentially,
I assume
there's-
all that's done.
Essentially, there's only one company that does this. There's nobody really in this area that does. There's certainly other people that have their own structure system, but what's unique about this is that we looked at is it's a new hybrid that just came out this past summer. So it's the only bleacher system like this that has this structure system and has the ability to enclose it in the back. Anything else, the footing situation is much more involved. A truly enclosed bleacher system, or they call them stadium bleachers that you might see. This is probably the least expensive route that I'm aware of that allows you to enclose it. And we'd be certainly happy to bring back any of the vendors to talk further about that piece, and if we wanted to look at integrating it in on our own. But the recommendations that I'm getting from Doug Duran is, if you want to do a standalone building, knock yourself out, do the concession stand. It's on the ground, 4 walls, roof, basic amenities on the inside. But when you get into integrating a bleacher system off the ground into somebody else's structural piece, from a risk and liability perspective, he wouldn't recommend it. And he's built a few stadiums. So, take that for what it's worth. I'm just happy to go down that road and try to explore alternative options if you feel like that's something that the group wants to do.
Do you think it'd be viable to put together is there somewhere local we could go look at one of these? Do you think anybody would be interested in taking them out there and showing what what we're actually looking at?
There certainly is bleacher systems put in by JWI that is in the area that we could go see. One that's like this, we may have to travel a little bit further because that's a newer system, but we could see their current enclosed system. We also have some mock-up pictures that we could show you stadiums that are like that without traveling. So if I've got a deck that I could probably pull up some pictures if we wanted to stick around a little bit and just show you this is what the stadium would look like, this is what the press box would look like. It's just different colors.
Just looking at a few in the area, in JWI have their tag on them all, so they obviously have the marketplace here, the market share, but Baraboo had a nice facility, Wanakee they had a very nice facility, but you get around that and you see that Baraboo's structure, I think it was 2012 they did theirs. And you get in that facility, you're like, man, this is would look awful nice in Mineral Point. And just to get the general public around that, to say it's not just a piece of dirt and some lines on a field. I mean, this is the finished product, this is what we're going for.
Yeah.
Just to spark some more interest. I mean, I don't know if that would be anything that people would be interested in, but it's something that gets the blood going a little bit, gets the blood pumping a little bit more about what we're after, and this isn't something we're dragging in on skids or anything. We're looking for a really nice facility, hence the nice price tag that goes with it. So
I can
people like to know what they're getting.
I'll find some facilities that are nearer and just let you know what those are, and if anybody wants to put together a site visit, I'd be happy to join you.
It was just an idea. I mean, it's obviously for good weather, but anything to get more people thinking about it.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a picture or mock-up or something of bleachers or press box or something like that with your marketing materials for the pledges or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there was a group of pictures we looked at when we were kind of deciding on the bleacher press box configuration and size. I forget, Gillette was one, that was a new one up north, but there was a variety of them in the area that looked pretty sharp. It just mattered what color you used and maybe some different unique things maybe your school that you put on there.
Thank thanks to everyone for coming out too. We appreciate it. If you get time to mull it over and you come up with any ideas or anything you think you can share with us, please reach out. We're open to any suggestions.
All suggestions are welcome.